So two questions come to mind. First off, did you find it hard to, find friends at that stage? Because I
Mm,
noticed a lot of ambition, and a lot of times people write into the show and they say, "Man, the story of that particular individual resonates with me, but like, I find it so hard to be in a supportive environment, or their
yeah,
significant other is not that supportive."
yeah,
Did you find as a woman in particular that I don't know, maybe you were dating men at the time, and
yeah,
then you were having issues with like, the power struggle, or
yeah,
the ambition, or even friends, I'm sure girlfriends, maybe
sure.
they just wanted to go out to eat, but you're trying to build a big business, or,
Yeah.
they're trying to go.
Oh, yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that and how you navigated those waters for,
Yeah.
men or women who
Oh,
may be
I
listening, dealing
think it
with
was
that?
really lonely. I think
Really?
entrepreneurship is really lonely. And I think that there was a complete mismatch for me with my, at least if I think of my like college girlfriends,
Mhm.
I was always the weirdo, right? Like
Mhm.
I was doing like they were worried about the next step of who they were dating or who they were going to
Yeah.
marry or whatever, and I was on a very different track.
Yeah.
And I think that I was fortunate for my childhood in that I had many times been the weirdo in the room.
Ah.
The you're not going to be cool when you're the new kid, right?
Mhm.
Like you got to earn that. That's going to
Yeah,
take a long
totally.
time.
Yeah.
And so I was used to that pattern, and therefore it didn't dissuade me from doing it. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean it wouldn't have been great to have had that kind of support. But I think that in that way,
Mhm.
probably my real support system became my big brothers,
Exactly,
who
your
were
family, yeah.
always family was always really, and particularly I think my brothers who sort of got it that
Mhm.
I was on a different path and they were going to support me in getting there. But it is it can be lonely
Mhm.
if you're somebody who is gonna you don't fit the mold, right? You're
Totally.
not following that conventional path that other
Mhm.
people are following, and that creates discomfort for
Mhm.
others.
Yeah, and a little bit of alienation
Yep.
sometimes, yeah.
Yep.
But never to the point where it got to you at all because you were just
Yeah.
full speed ahead?
I think I shook it off. And I
Yeah.
think that it's just from, I think it was just from good training, so to speak, if you
Yeah.
will, in childhood to be able to have done that. But yeah, I think it hurt my feelings many times along the way when my girlfriends like didn't get it or weren't supportive. And the truth is, I haven't kept in touch with many of them. Like life
Yeah.
has changed over time, and I didn't fit that, and my
Mhm.
circle became a very different circle. You
Mhm.
got to find those people who are going to support you, not just feed you the lines,
Mhm.
that it's going to work. Like you got to have people around you who challenge you, but you got to find that circle.
That support system
Mine
for
were
sure.
not there from the get go.
So then you start Slate in
2007.
2007.
Yes.
So what was 2005? You said.
I decided I was going to do it. And it took me a few years to find a
Gotcha.
product. Not so easy to go out and
Mhm.
buy a pharmaceutical product
So that
with,
was you launched with saying, I'm going to start a product.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, what was that first product for people who don't know?
It was a testosterone product for men, so it's
Mhm.
one of the male sexual health drugs. So here's a woman. So first of all, there's less than 3% of pharma companies are run by women, and then I'm leading a male sexual health company. Who would have thought
Yeah. I'm
it?
sure those conversations are very interesting
They
in the
are
beginning.
interesting,
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
And then, so what was the plan with that, and what did you
Yeah.
experience in that journey? Ups, downs?
I mean, you know what? The fun of the first startup is you do not know. Like
Mhm.
you don't know what you don't know, and that's a beautiful thing actually as you get
Mhm.
going. My hypothesis was simple. It was there are people like me who
Mhm.
are driven, competitive, successful sort of despite an environment that can be suffocating
Right.
because that's just how they show up. And again, if I can put them together, I can get a good product, and we can show up differently in this sort of pharma world. Imagine what could happen, and that
Totally, yeah.
was like really the extent of it. And it, to me, the most important part of building my own was a culture that I loved, and so it was culture was came first.
Hence the principles on the napkin.
Totally.
Who influenced that in you? Who are entrepreneurs who influenced that sort of thinking in you, or that
Um,
you looked up to, or
I'll tell you. Okay, I'll tell you my favorite business story, whether it be folklore or real.
yeah.
I at least once upon a time I read this, and it was about Southwest when it got
Mhm.
started, and that they were going to have a like a core value of fun.
Totally,
Like
yeah.
they were going to do it differently than the other airlines. Never mind all their efficiencies and that, but
Yeah.
culture was critical, and early flight. A flight attendant came on and said, "In the case of a water landing, we'll be serving Mai Tais off of the right wing."
Mhm.
And somebody on the
Just
plane
humor,
was
yeah.
like, "Oh, oh no, I'm a nervous flyer, and that's so inappropriate, and you know how those things go, and
Sensitivities and
wrote in a letter, and the letter, as the story goes, sort of worked its way up the organization and got onto Herb Kelleher's desk.
As a CEO.
Yeah, and a conventional response to that would be, we apologize, we take your, concern so seriously. And he supposedly on his letterhead wrote just 3 words. He wrote, "We'll miss you," because he wasn't going to give up who he was or what he'd set out to do. He knew that, that woman would never be happy flying his airline, but he wasn't going to compromise that because he knew a ton of other people would be. And I love those kind of stories of culture. I grew up going to a grocery store called Wegmans.
Yes.
It was a family-owned business.
I know you've been asked in other interviews
Yeah.
about what your favorite business
Yeah.
was, and you actually said Wegmans.
I do. I love it. It's really weird. I'm almost like a cult-like follower to a grocery store.
And for somebody who built a company with $1 billion exit,
Yeah.
to think that you're inspired by, someone like of that small scale.
Constantly.
So what was it about Wegmans?
I mean, it was the fact that they could create loyalty. And like, how do you create loyalty in, showing up every day to be a cashier at a grocery store? It's not that fun, probably, right? It's probably pretty monotonous work. And yet the pride of their employees in being exceptional, the fact that they worked for them for 20, 25 years, they came to DC and opened a store, and I stood outside to get in on their very first day when they broke into that market.
Wow.
And all their employees, and they brought people in who'd worked for them for 20 years as cashiers, et cetera, to train this new group. And they all walked outside, and they all held their hands like over their head like this. It makes a W for the Wegmans way. And I thought there's something actually exceptional that they're that prideful. So I've always been a student of business.
And culture, yeah.
And when we started Slate, I wanted to actually, all of the folks that came to work for me, not only were they going to be owners and have skin in the game, because you make decisions totally differently when you really have a piece of it, but we were going to learn from the best. And so we had an opportunity for customer service, so I took the entire company to Zappos, and we learned from them. Because nobody in pharma was any good at customer service.
Yeah, true, yeah.
And my heroes weren't in my industry. And, we had sales meetings where we would go to the market in Seattle, Pike Place Market, and just go and interview all the businesses for what it is that makes them truly exceptional. You can learn from everybody around you all the time. And I think you should always be challenging yourself. How do I apply that to what I'm doing to be better?
And what do you think advantage-wise that gave you that other companies don't? Because other companies are more cookie cutter, or we only get wisdom from the consultants in the space.
Yeah.
So you just sort of reimagined and had the guts to say, F it, let's just try them. Let's try them.
I think worse than that, worse than even thinking we get the advice from the consultants, is that we get content that we're just fine the way we are, because that's the way it's done. I hate the notion of that's just the way it's done. I'm always well, why is it done that way? Like, isn't there a better way? Could there be a better way? And I think that's really, that complacency is the enemy. I mean, truly, in life, I think complacency is the enemy in your relationships, and in your work, as a business owner. That's really that's death.
Yeah, particularly when you have a certain amount of success. You get comfortable, or what drove you to get there is now no longer that. It might not be the motive, or it might not be as hot. So you got to focus on service, or the motivation might change or evolve, or just turn off completely. Yeah, you see that happen. Now, talk to me about what happened with Slate.
Okay. So Slate was an awesome ride of mistakes and failures and fucking it up, but here's the beauty: when you start it, I had gotten to a place in my career where I went into companies and helped them, go public or get ready for acquisition. And I was cleaning up messes all of the time. And I was like, well, shit, I made this mess. Now I have to clean it up.
And always in the pharma space.
For the most part. I did one stint. I went out and I worked helping inventors take their products into QVC.
Oh, okay.
And that's another lesson of learning. I looked around and I said, I know no distribution model other than pharma.
Right.
And that's crazy. Like, I want to learn a different model.
Yeah.
And so I went in and learned it from the inside and took like a crazy flyer to do that. Wow. And I learned more in that 18 months. And again, lessons that I came back and applied to my life in the industry.
Yeah, very smart.
If you guys enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you the very best in personal development content, interviews, and insight to help inspire you to take your life and your dreams and make them a reality. And also, if you want to know how to book dream guests the same way I have, you can check the link below for my top 3 secrets. So if you have a podcast or a show or whatever it is and you want to collaborate with them, if you click that link below, I'll give you those top 3 secrets to help you get in touch with anybody. And also, don't forget that The Passionate Few is available on media platforms as well. So you can subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being one of the passionate few.